Okay, so it looks like the recording has begun and we are good to go. Again, welcome to Navigating Your Science Career Journey, a webinar series for environmental science and geoscience students here at SNHU. My name is Alyssa Laskowski and I work on the SNHU Career Services team, and I will be your host this evening along with my colleague Tyra to walk you through today's panel and presentation. So Tyra, I'll go ahead and turn over to you so you can quickly introduce yourself as well.
Sure. Thank you so much, Alyssa. And I believe we have all the panelists here. So thank you all for joining us. My name is Tyra Davey. I'm the Associate Dean of Science for our global campus at SNHU. So excited to be with you all today, and I will help basically facilitate the questions for our panelists. So thank you all for the attendees and our panelists for joining this evening.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tara. So as I mentioned, just some housekeeping rules. So those in the audience this evening, your microphones have been muted and your cameras have been turned off and disabled. So please continue to engage via the chat box. But again, as long as you can hear me okay and see the screen, you are good to go. So let's go ahead and get started. And so your experience here at SNHU is very important to us. It is our policy and practice to create an inclusive and accessible learning environment. If there are aspects of this presentation's design or delivery that present barriers to accessibility, please notify the appropriate accessibility centers. So if you're an online student, you can contact OAC at snhu.edu or call 866-305-9430. If you're a campus student, you can email CAC at snhu.edu or call 603-644-3118. Or if you are SNHU staff or faculty member, you can reach out to HR at snhu.edu. And a request for live captioning or live ASL interpreting requires at least 3 weeks of advance notice. So once again, welcome all of you. We're so excited that you are here this evening and so excited that our panelists are here. So where are we headed this evening? Today, we will start by introducing all of our amazing panelists by asking them a set of preset panel questions that Tyra and I have put together in advance. And then afterwards, we will open it up to Q&A from the student audience and then wrap it up with some key takeaways and reminders. Again, this reminder, a quick reminder here, this webinar is being recorded. So those in the audience are not required to take any notes, but of course you are more than welcome to do so. All attendees will receive a follow-up email with all the links to this recording as well as any other additional resources we discussed today. Once again, housekeeping items, your microphones and cameras have been turned off. We will have time for that open Q&A at the end, as I mentioned, so please, if you wouldn't mind waiting to add your questions into the chat box at the end, and then we will be able to unmute those who do wish to ask their questions aloud, or we will go ahead and read the questions aloud for you. And without further ado, let's go ahead and introduce our guest panelists this evening. So first, I'll get started by introducing Christopher Keene. Christopher is the Director of Geoscience Profession and Higher Education at the American Geoscience Institute. He has overseen AGI's workforce development efforts for the last 25 years to support the development of a robust workforce in support of a global geoscience community. He holds a PhD in marine, estuarine, and environmental science, and also is the Vice President of the EU-based International Raw Materials Observatory. And next, I'd like to introduce Isabel, excuse me. Isabel is from North Carolina and holds a degree in biology from UNC Chapel Hill and a Master of Environmental Management from Duke University. She started working with large conservation NGOs for her master's project by collaborating with TNC and have stayed in the same field ever since. Her first job after school was with the WWF as part of their Global Innovation Program, and she currently works with Conservation International in the Center for Natural Climate Solutions focused on restoration. And next, I'll introduce Donovan. Donovan is a small business environmental ombudsman for the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation. Having been with the program for 26 years, he assists small businesses with any environmental questions they may have and serves as a free confidential consultant within the state government for small businesses. He holds a bachelor's in chemistry from Tennessee Technological University and is a volunteer instructor in the sport of fencing. And I'd like to introduce Greta. Greta is a licensed professional geologist working for New York's Department of Environmental Conservation's Division of Environmental Remediation. She spent 13 years in the environmental consulting private sector before pivoting to public service for the last 5 years. Her career has been spent ensuring the regulated community maintains compliance with all appropriate standards. Welcome, panelists. And so we will start by asking our panelists a total of 8 questions related to your unique career story, career exploration related to the field of environmental sciences and geosciences, and finally about trends within the field. We'll first randomly call on a panelist to begin, and then of course we'll give everyone else a chance to answer if they wish. And if you could keep your answers brief to ensure that we just make sure we get through all the questions and we get to that open Q&A portion from our students, that would be greatly appreciated. So the first question, I'm actually going to go ahead and kick it over to Tyra to get us started.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for the introductions, Alyssa, and thank you, panelists, for sharing your story. So, we're going to ask you some questions about your own personal career journey and the ways that you've navigated that. And so, I'll kick it to Donovan for us to start and tell us a little bit about what your career journey has looked like.
Well, thank you, Tyra. It's definitely been fairly interesting overall. This is actually the first career I had straight out of college as a long-term, and through it, it's been varied. Originally started out as an energy efficiency expert, but then it's graduated to, and the main thing about my job is diversity. Um, we handle anything from campgrounds to nuclear medicine. And of course, most cases, I'm not going to know the answer right off. So it helps the network to be able to ask the question of other people or know enough to lead the business into they have the information there. We just got to lead them into knowing what the information that the state needs for their permitting is. Um, and I feel that having a good background at the stage that most of the people here are at, being in college, is going to give them that ability to think critically and diversely to be able to handle anything that's thrown at them.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Donovan. And I'll open it up for the other panelists if you'd like to share.
Sure. I mean, I'll chime in. I think sort of echoing a few of the things that Donovan was saying. I mean, so coming out of college, I was working for the U.S. Bureau of Mines and went through a RIF. That was actually the last big RIF that the government had back in the early 90s. And then ended up going to grad school. Was lucky to have that opportunity. But that started, I had a very, I'll say, social graduate advisor, and he made sure I networked all the time. And part of that process, actually, I started working with AGI, American Geosciences Institute, while I was in grad school, and that actually led into a natural career. But through that, in my position, I've ended up having a very diverse portfolio of activities in there. Everything from editing our science magazine to geoscience policy, workforce economics, data analytics, you name it. But the thing I like particularly about a relatively small nonprofit, it is a very person-oriented experience. And so it's always about the networking and finding those right experts. We're a federation of societies, so I get to tap everyone in the geosciences. When I don't know those questions, the answers to those questions when we're supporting folks out there. So, I think that whole networking component and recognizing that there is a big community out there supporting your every move is, I think, always very useful.
Excellent. That's one thing that I love about working at SNHU is how people oriented it is. So thank you so much both for sharing. Isabel or Greta, do you have anything that you want to share about your story?
Yeah, this is Greta. I went to State University of New York at Albany for a career or for a degree in geology. I was kind of thinking that I wanted to maybe teach earth sciences, but we didn't really have that path. So I was like, I'll just do geology and get a master's in teaching. I have a cousin actually who's a geologist also, so I interned with him as a remediation consultant, and I loved that. I loved being out in the field for that time with him. So I was like, well, let me get some field experience before I go for further education. And I just fell in love with remedial consulting, and I've been doing that ever since. I would say one thing that I have advice for is the first that job that you get, if you're not enjoying it, don't take it to mean that your degree is trash or that that company is trash, or, there's a difference between a small company and a big company. There's a difference between remedial contracting and resource management. It could just be that you're not in the right fit there. Have seen actually a handful of people who quit on their first day because they didn't like it. Then they decided they were going back to school or something. And I would just say to continue to explore, keep your mind open to it and see what fits in your heart. And especially I feel like in the environmental field, it's very personally driven and we all have a lot of passion for what we do. So listen to what it's telling you is right to do.
I love that. Thank you so much, Greta. Yeah, it's just as important to know what you love as much as what isn't working or what you don't love about a job. So thank you for sharing. And then Isabel, do you want to tell us a little about what your career journeys look like?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Yeah, so I would say my career has been, I guess, pretty linear in the sense that I knew from a pretty young age before I graduated from school that I wanted to work for a big conservation nonprofit, and I've been doing that ever since. But it hasn't been linear in the sense that, like the topics that I thought I would work on, just it didn't really work out that way. I thought I would be really focused on water when I came out of school. And turns out now I work on restoration and I'm very focused on forests and have worked on an innovation team in the past. And so, um, if even the path getting there was sort of what I thought, but in terms of what I work on day to day, it's been quite different from what I expected. And sort of to echo what Greta mentioned, it's just a matter of taking advantage of the opportunities that were presented and realizing that even if something isn't exactly what you thought it would be at first, that it can still open doors or be a worthwhile use of your time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Let's go ahead and keep it moving then. We'll go on to the next question. So Christopher, if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to start you off with this one. What professional development, career resources, or networking opportunities did you leverage along your career journey?
That's a good question. I think the career journeys look relatively, I'll say, feels sort of relatively linear, but I think the key thing is the differentiating is all the proximal skills and development. So in this process, I have my background in geology; it's where my degrees are. But I also got formal training in economics, and avocationally have done a lot of data computer programming. And really, it's that package that has been really key to open up all kinds of new doors and new opportunities. And it's the same for all of us, within, say, AGI. And I think it's most of those opportunities I had to go find and had to sell to my boss, to get the time. And so you look at it and there's a little bit of dreaming ahead. And particularly as you get to meet people and you say, hey, that's really cool what they're doing. And I think that there's a future there. I want to go explore that more. So a lot of it is just driving it versus, just taking sort of the traditional inputs of professional development and things that are going in there, but rather, crafting your own pathway, and recognizing the world you're working in and where those strengths come. They may not on face value look very exciting. I mean, you say economics, that's most people are going to go fall asleep. But actually, when you had the context, it was terrific. I loved it. And it applied immediately. So the intentional learning space is really very powerful.
Thank you, Christopher. And you made a good point about being like almost proactive of like getting out there, finding those opportunities. They're not just going to always kind of fall within your lap, right? Being proactive, taking charge, and finding those opportunities to grow and develop a network. So love sharing that. Any other panelists like to jump in on this question as well? Feel free to chime in.
Yeah, I would like to.
Go for it.
So I think this has a lot to do with the company you work for also. I know that I was at a large company at one point, and while the pay was great and the projects were awesome, anytime I went to them and asked for anything to advocate for myself or can I work on this or that, it was shut down. This is what you do. This is, we have other people who are doing that. And after a while, it becomes frustrating when you don't get, any feedback on, what you'd really like to advance in your life and in your career. Compared to I've been at a small company that had 25 employees and our boss would have monthly meetings where he would have a life coach come in, and he sent us all to like sales training classes, and he was a really strong advocate for networking and professional development, and he absolutely changed my life. He gave me a mentor to have, who I still 10 years 15 years later talk to, and has connected me with people when I've tried to move into new areas or a different state or anything. So definitely advocate for yourself and don't take no for an answer.
Thank you, Greta. I love that. And it's great to hear that you had a leader who is also willing to help you along the way. That's super important. Having someone advocate and be on your side. I love hearing that. Donovan or Isabel, any other final thoughts on this question?
Sure, I can jump in. I would just say too that sometimes the quote unquote traditional ways will work out. I mean, thinking back to when I was in school, I would go to conferences and talk to folks and sort of do cold emails and see if people were willing to do informational interviews with me and things. And those didn't necessarily turn into jobs, but I learned a lot about what people were doing day to day in the industry, and so I found them to be quite helpful.
Thank you.
And I'll also add in, while you're currently in university, take advantage of any opportunities you have. Stretch out and do something different, whether it's working with a professor on a particular project. Like one summer, I did seismic surveys of alluvial fans in North Carolina. But also, there's a great option for, especially as you're getting to an upperclassman, seminar, where you actually have to get up in front of your fellow class and talk about whatever project you're working on. And these can be special projects from various teachers. It may not even be inside your field, because mine original one was on trying to do oil analysis for source rock, and there's a lot of issues with that, but that was really stretching out from being a chemist and working in a geology field, which I also grew up with, so it's sort of cross there. So take advantage of those opportunities as well while you're still in university, because that diversity will help you whenever you get into the workforce.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Great advice. Tara, I'll turn it over to you for the next one.
Great. Thank you so much. So I'll start with Greta for this question. What's one thing you wish that someone would have told you during your career journey, either while you're working through academics or just getting started or even just recently? What's one thing that kind of surprised you that you wish someone would have given you a heads up on?
Yeah, I'm super excited to hear all of my fellow panelists today mention the networking thing. I think it was something that didn't necessarily get stressed enough to me when I was younger and when I was in my first couple of companies. And once I had that boss that was just really great, it made my career explode. It changed me as a human. I just like, it made such a difference in my life that I cannot stress enough, and I'm so glad that it's being echoed across the board today.
And
Excellent. Thank you. Open it up. Yeah, go ahead, Christopher.
Yeah, and I just, one of the other things too, which really building on that, is the fact that I think if you reach out, as was sort of mentioned, doing informational interviews, things like that, most people in the geosciences, the working professionals, love to talk to students. And I think, it always seems like, oh, there's this big gap, but they will go out of their way. If you show interest and you want to just talk about the topics or do a mock interview or anything like that, all my colleagues, I find that they love that opportunity, and I encourage folks, don't be bashful. It is actually a very friendly community in general that I find.
There, I just wanted to go back to, and I will say, I've noticed, at least in New York, I don't know about other states, but it's a very small environmental field, and like pretty much everybody knows each other or has heard of each other or is connected in some kind of a way. So don't burn any bridges.
Those are really great points. Absolutely. And, we had panelists from all over, so eager to talk to you all, this audience tonight. So thank you again to our panelists, right? You are all showing that you're eager to really connect and be able to share this advice and get people moving to where they want to be. So really appreciate that. Isabel or Donovan, do you have anything to add?
So I'll jump in, and as we are talking networking, and as Greta mentioned, depending on your area, it can feel like a small world. For example, Greta, please say hi to Tim Kirchgraber for me. He's somebody I actually know in the New York department up there, and sort of my counterpart there. Um, so surprising connections you'll always find. And sometimes at conferences, yeah, you may have the opportunity to learn a lot of things, but I've actually been finding the longer I've been in the career, I find it better to be talking to people, and I get less out of the actual training than I do in talking to other people. And that right now you have a opportunity with your instructors to talk to lots of people who've had effectively hundreds of years of experience in all kinds of different things. Plus, get involved in your community. That may be another opportunity for you to reach out to people, especially anything that might end up giving you leadership skills, because that in itself is a great opportunity and will get your foot in the door better than a lot of other things. Um, for me, it was being in scouting. And one of the things we had up on the wall is before any of the Apollo astronauts went up into space, they were Eagle Scouts. Um, so that is something, whether it's scouting, whether it's working with your church or any type of community thing like that, that'll help as well.
And maybe just to add a little bit, kind of building on what Donovan said, I wish somebody had told me that the soft skills are just as important as the hard skills early on. I was definitely really focused on, making sure that I was good at GIS and that I could do coding and all these different things. And then when you get into the workforce, you realize that a lot of your job is, talking to people and learning how to navigate the dynamics of working in a team and conflict resolution and all these different things that maybe you don't think about when you're in school as much, but are very important.
That that is awesome. Thank you all so much for sharing that and sharing a little bit more about you and your background and what's kind of gotten you to where you are. So truly appreciate all this amazing insight. So keep it coming as we move on to our career exploration section. So one of the first questions, so Isabel, I'm going to call on you for this first one. How would you go about recommending breaking into the field or, telling students the importance of kind of gaining relevant experience if a student is more of a career changer? What advice would you have?
Sure. Well, I would say, be willing to sort of start small, like maybe take an internship or volunteer somewhere. And then also, think about like maybe positions that are maybe not exactly what you want to be doing, but are relevant in some way. And that can be a good way to sort of break in. You may not find the dream job on the first try, but if you can find something that will give you relevant experience that can then be leveraged into the dream job, then I think that's worthwhile. And then when you do get those opportunities, try to really put your best foot forward and go all in on them because, those are going to be the folks who are giving you letters of recommendation for future positions and talking to their networks and things on your behalf.
Awesome. Thanks, Isabel. And yeah, I'll open up this question to our other panelists as well. Any thoughts or insights for breaking into the field or gaining some relevant experience?
So, I mean, what sort of witnessing with colleagues actually sort of the opposite direction where they moved out of geology for various life reasons and into other fields like finance. What was interesting, exactly that, it sort of, I'll say, started recognize that they were stepping back to a starting point in a career. But the key thing is that they're bringing and I don't care where you're coming from, you're bringing a lot of those experiences, a lot of those soft skills you've already developed. Most of those are sort of learned in the, uh, in the hard knocks of life and the like. But then what I've always noticed is those individuals then accelerate very quickly up the chain because they actually are coming with those experiences. They're able to sort of accelerate, and they're able to leverage all those additional experiences because there's really very few, I'd say, pure baked jobs that don't take advantage, where you can't take advantage of other skills and other knowledge bases to help build your career moving forward. That's especially the case the smaller the organization that you maybe are working with.
Thanks, Christopher. Donovan and Greta, any thoughts on this question as well?
Yeah. So like I said earlier, internships, yeah, they're a great way if you can get them, but they're going to be few and far between. You may have better opportunities within your own universities, either student work, working with a professor on a project, doing your own project if you can as a work study. Those are some things that are built into a lot of universities that you can take advantage of. Plus, some of them give you very unique skills. Or at least experiences, even if you may not retain the skills. Like I can't run geophones anymore. Uh, but, and then at the same time, it's, yeah, you're going to start small, but I really see career paths being two different options. One is sticking with a career for as long as you enjoy it. I mean, I've been in my position now for 26 years, and that helps build up your expertise in that. However, if it's not a position that you like, don't be afraid to change it and find something that you do like, because once you enjoy something, you're going to be experiencing it and learning it a lot better than if you were just like dreading going there. So those are a couple things to be looking at.
Wonderful. Thank you. Greta, any final thoughts on this one as well?
Yeah, they had some great advice. I would just say, when you're putting together your resume or going on your interview, definitely stress those hard and soft skills that you have from wherever you're coming from that would apply to what you're looking to do. And, maybe in the interview asking what other opportunities they provide at the company to be involved in different aspects than just the straight day-to-day in and out of your job. If there's a working group on a certain aspect of the job, like how do you get involved in that? That would kind of lead them to believe you were more of a go-getter and like you were interested in helping grow the company or grow the practice. So that might give you a little bit of a leg up.
Fabulous. Thank you all so much for your insight. Appreciate it. And Tyra, I will turn over to you for the next question.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I apologize. I think we'll start with Christopher for this one. What skills are essential for success in this type of career field? We talked a little bit about hard and soft skills, where those come into play. So what would maybe be the top two hard skills, the top two soft skills that you coming to be successful in this type of career field?
So, I mean, if I come from it from the geoscience standpoint, where part of my job is studying where these things are going, the on the hard side, really strong core competency in the discipline. Every employer is calling for this, and part of it is the workspace and the work top projects are getting much more diverse. So you need actually a stronger base to work from. And the other side of actually, and I would call this a hard skill, is the ability to learn and respond in an agile way to all the new different, whether it's technological or topical changes and shifts in the context. In the soft skills, project time management and communications. Those are probably some of the toughest, but actually being in school is a great time to practice them and take advantage for it. But that always seems to be the biggest predictor of success. And I would actually say, if you have fundamental competence in the technical side, the soft skills is what will take you up to the top of the game in a lot of organizations.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we can know all of the technical information, but if we can't communicate it out to the people that matter, that's a real challenge. So thank you for that sentiment. Other panelists, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would say, oh, sorry, cut you off there, Don, but I would really say, obviously reading and writing comprehension and being able to write in a scientific manner is a really strong suit. Mutability, being able to change if you're asked to do some type of project and then they're like, hey, we really need somebody else to work on this team doing X, Y, or Z. Being able to have that flexibility in what you're willing to do in your work. And then also, particularly in the remediation field, an ability to think on your feet. Every time you go out to a job site, it's never what you anticipate it to be. It's never the way that the people in the office describe it or the way that it's written in the work plan. So to be able to work with the tools that you have, the people that you have there, and get the job done, however you need to get it done, is a superior skill.
Excellent. Thanks, Greta. And then Donovan, I want to pass it back to you.
So definitely the hard skills, knowing enough chemistry, sciences of any type. It keeps you flexible the more that you know on that. One of the key skills I would honestly recommend is know how to do unit analysis. And that's being able to convert one thing from something that you have to another. I get this issue all the time in looking through safety data sheets to help do calculations. And sometimes different companies will write them in all kinds of different ways, and I have to get them into a single type of unit that I need. So that honestly has been one of the most commonly used things I have. Everything else, it's a matter of being able to communicate, finding who has the answer, and be able to talk to them about this is what I need, and then figuring out how to communicate to somebody else, because we encounter people with all levels of comprehension. There's plenty of people I've dealt with who may not have ever used a computer. They may even still have a rotary phone. And I'm having to try and teach them environmental regulations and what's required for their business to be in compliance. But that's also the great thing about the career I've chosen and why I've stuck with it is I get to have comments like, I called the government and it was easy, or my business wouldn't exist without your help.
Excellent. Thank you, Donovan. Yeah, hearing adaptability, communication, and just being able to come into a situation and maybe not have all the answers, but know how to figure that out. Isabel, do you have anything to add?
Sure. Yeah, trying to think of things that haven't already been mentioned, but two that come to mind. This first one may not be applicable in all fields, but language skills, as in like a second language, can be really helpful. I mean, I didn't, put a lot of effort into my Spanish classes back in school, and now I really wish that I had done more of that to be able to communicate with people who speak different languages around the world. And then another one is, we've mentioned good communication. I think part of that is being a good listener. And I really value working with people who are willing to listen carefully before responding. So that may not get you your first job, but once you're there, I think it's something that's really appreciated.
Absolutely. Yeah. Being able to take in information and define what a problem might be to be able to solve it. Great points, Isabel. Thank you. And then I'll pass it back to Alyssa for the next question.
Awesome. This has been great advice all around. Thank you all so much for sharing. Just wanted to, maybe I'll pitch this one over to Donovan, I think, to get us started. So what types of positions does your organization specifically hire for as far as jobs or maybe internship opportunities? And or if you don't have any opportunities, do you just have any general advice for applicants who are trying to, again, send off their resumes? Any tips for them to make them stand out?
Okay, so with the state of Tennessee, especially Department of Environment Conservation, we hire all kinds of positions. Most of them do would prefer some level of science background, but that isn't necessarily always the case. For example, if we need somebody in our public relations group or public media, uh, it's better to have some level of journalism or something along those lines. Also, we have all the state parks, so we have a lot of law enforcement degrees that come in there. and we even put them through an entire school, so they are accredited police officers at the end of it. So there's a huge range. I think we have over 4,000 people in our department alone. So we are one of the large ones. We do offer various internships. Internships can range anywhere from working with a regulatory program. We have some in our non-regulatory programs. We even have summer internships with our state parks as seasonal interpretive. So it can run the whole range of you're working on trails to you're dressing up as somebody from 1800s and becoming a seasonal interpretive character. Um, so honestly, as far as my advice for applicants is be upfront, try to be confident in who you are and what you're presenting of yourself. I know, especially as early interviews, these are hard things to learn, but the more you get confident and comfortable in yourself, then it'll show forth in the interview. Also, don't be negative. We've had a few interviews that they're technically competent, but at the end, one of my people on the panel wanted to punch the person they were interviewing because they were so negative about their former job. So don't be negative. And also, the better that you can show the diversity of your skills, the better I think you'll show. Another example I put out is we recently hired for a position, and we actually had to pass up 4 doctoral candidates because they didn't have the skills that we needed. Because they might have been good in one area, but they weren't necessarily good in the other. So the diversity in your skills gives you a broader application.
Thank you, Donovan. That's a really great insight and give us a good overview too of the kind of positions within your organization, and again, some great tips for folks to kind of stand out as they're going through those applications and interviews. So I'll kick it over to again any of the other panelists if you'd like to share what types of positions your organization hires for, or just in general any advice as students are applying for positions.
Yeah, I think it makes sense for me to go. I'm also with the State Department for New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. As I said, I'm in the Division of Remediation. So much like Donovan just said, we hire statewide all of the degrees, everybody, all the different types from high school education to doctorates and everywhere in between. But in the Division of Remediation in particular, we're looking for those environmentally based degrees. So geologists, environmental engineering, maybe some civil engineering or, environmental sciences, any kind of mineral resources, all of those kind of earthbound ones. I will say though, when you're looking at your degree and you're looking into the future, see what professional licensing is available for your specific degree as you advance in your career. I know in New York we have our professional geologist license now. We have the professional engineers, and I will say that those that can get a license will advance further and make more money in their career down the line. And that is probably something I wish somebody had said to me earlier. In my career, I was lucky enough that I have a geology degree and I was able to get that professional geologist license versus, I've seen some kids with earth science degrees and they don't have the coursework required to sit for that exam. So I would just say, look to see what other opportunities you can have for advancing your career in that sort of way moving forward.
I can jump in. We also hire for a pretty broad variety of jobs. I mean, we have lawyers and fundraisers and people who focus in communications, then also a lot of more science-focused positions. I would say most of what I personally hire for is internships, and we do have a lot of internships at CI. And the advice that I would give is to make sure that you are tailoring your resume and cover letter to the position. When we do an initial screening of all the applicants, we're just going through it, making sure that kind of checking boxes. So if we say, we need somebody who can do GIS, then we're looking very quickly to see, like, can this candidate do GIS? And so if that's not on your resume or in your cover letter, then that sort of automatically disqualifies you. And so, yeah, just making sure that you're highlighting the skills that are relevant to the position. It's important.
Yeah, and at AGI, we have about 50 folks that work there, and 48 of them are all have geoscience backgrounds, but everyone is combined with something else. So we have a bibliographic data system. We have 42 foreign languages covered at the technical level that where they do the translations. We have K-12 education folks developing curriculum. We have higher education folks. We have lots of policy people, so there's this diversity. So, the geoscience, environmental science is also a gateway to combine other things into other spaces, whether at a place like AGI that is geoscience focused, but then the other side is you get other organizations that need that geoscience input as well, where you can bring a lot of that. I think one key advice, having interviewed a lot of people, is make sure you do a little homework about the organization you're applying for. This has become almost consistent. Like none of the applicants are actually reading up and trying to understand the organization. And so the interview comes across as very transactional. And working in an organization is a relationship, and so that's a very difficult, makes it a very awkward situation, and to be honest with you, makes the onboarding process when you do have someone a little bit more, a little less smooth. So please, do your homework and actually try to understand the organization, not just the top 4 points that maybe Wikipedia or Google will tell you.
Yeah, I just would jump in and say too, that's a really great point. And come prepared with questions specific to that company of something you saw, even if it's just a random thing you saw on their website. It doesn't take a lot of investigation into the company you're interviewing with to come up with just some kind of question to ask. It shows that you're interested. It shows that you did a little bit of homework. It's a good way to stand out from the rest of the crowd. And also to just put a little plug in for our internships at the State Department of Environmental Conservation for New York. If you search NYS DEC internships, you can find our website comes up, and our internships are open now through April 25th.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. And you guys have hit the nail on the head with so many of the things that we in the career services team are constantly, telling our students as well, that if you're thinking about, exploring opportunities, think about getting certifications or licenses that are going to give you some of that kind of competitive edge. Make sure your resume is hitting all those keywords. You're really tailoring it every time. It's not just a blanket resume you're sending to all the jobs in the world. Make sure you're really taking time to customize it and make sure that you're showing those employers on that resume that you are the right fit. And in the interview, make sure you absolutely know who you're interviewing with. It's a two-way street. You got to make sure you know about the organization, make sure it's a fit for you as well, but understanding what kind of organization you're looking to join and coming prepared absolutely with those questions. It shows the employers that you genuinely care. So you guys hit the nail on the head with all of that. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Tyra. We have a couple questions left before we get into the Q&A portion.
Wonderful. Thank you all. This has been so valuable. There's such great sharing going on in the chat as well. So feel free to engage. I am trying to capture any questions that come through. We're going to take probably one panelist for each of the last two questions. And so if there's anyone out of our four panelists that this speaks to, feel free to jump in first. I want to make sure there's enough time for Q&A because there's some really good chat going on. So what kind of future do you see for the job market in environmental science and the geoscience field? If there's anyone that has a lot to share and feels that this speaks to their role, I'll open the door for you to speak.
So this is actually one of the things that we study in our day job, and I think it's great with the selection of other panelists here because we're seeing the geosciences move very heavily to the professional services sector. So we got about 55% of all geoscience positions are in that professional services sector, what we used to call environmental. But it is a very diverse space. People are working across all areas. So oil and gas companies, mining companies are not doing a lot of direct hiring, but they're going through these other organizations now. And it's creating opportunities for folks to have very diverse careers and to be very agile. And it's actually getting rid of a lot of the cyclicity, which is a great thing that we have traditionally seen in geoscience. But it is also accelerating the number of opportunities. So BLS saw about an additional about 30,000 geoscience jobs in the fourth quarter of last year across the country. So that's a lot. So it's a good space right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you talked a lot about all the panelists mentioned about kind of the interdisciplinary nature that you're seeing people come from all sorts of different backgrounds to fill those roles. So really appreciate that. Thank you so much, Christopher. And then I'm going to toss it right to Alyssa for our final question, and then we'll open it up for Q&A.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Again, so many great advices and pieces of advice and insights being shared. So love to wrap us up before we get to the Q&A. So once again, anyone feel free to popcorn in on this one. The last question is, how would you advise students to plan for their future career in the environmental science or geoscience based on some of the current trends that are happening? And again, if this speaks to anybody, feel free to chime in.
Yeah, I think just going back to what I was saying about the licensing, I know we've seen it where now our positions require licensing to get to higher levels in state service. So I would say to just look for what types of environmental licenses are available in your state or the state you're looking to go to, and then see what kind of courses you need to take now in order to be able to sit for those exams. And as soon as you're able to sit for an exam, do it right away, because if you don't use it, you lose it. I know I probably couldn't pass the geology exam anymore just because I'm not doing hard rock, I'm doing remediation. So just as soon as you can to get those licensing, I think is the trending, more people are requiring it now.
Awesome. Thank you, Greta. I think we have one more minute left before we go to the Q&A. So just any final thoughts from our panelists on the questions within trending? How would you advise students to prepare for their careers?
So I'll jump on this. And as we've been saying, networking is key, diversity is key. And I've been noticing one of the big questions is regarding how the changes in administration, some people are concerned about that. Everybody's always going to need clean water, clean air, clean land. Geoscience is one of the key areas for that. So there's always going to be demand. Also, careers are going to change vastly in even 10 or 5 years. When I was in college, the GIS was just beginning. Now it is a major industry. Some of the changes in industry, that's going to be a vast change as you go through. So I might also recommend if you are looking at some type of government position, state governments honestly are probably more stable than federal. Just because of some of the wide swings, there isn't as much swing within a state government. I will say that because I do have several people I work with at a federal level, and so I'm seeing it going back and forth.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for going through those questions and again sharing all of your amazing advice and insights. Being mindful of the time here, want to make sure we did have some time to get through some of the student Q&A that's been going on wildly in the chat. So really appreciate everyone continuing to pop their questions in. So Tyra and I will do our best. We're going to kind of scroll through and try to get them kind of in order as much as we possibly can. We're going to go ahead and read them aloud for our panelists. If you feel comfortable or confident enough, if you'd like to actually ask your question aloud, there is a raise hand icon that you can select. Again, we will go in order of that. So it's kind of first come, first serve. So if you prefer that, but obviously continue to feel free to type your questions into the chat, and Tyra and I will do our best to read them out loud. So Tyra, did you have been collecting a few? So I don't know if you wanted to kick us off here.
I've got two, kind of main buckets.
Okay.
The first was around level of comfort around networking and getting that all initiated. If you feel like, possibly that you're bothering someone or that you don't really have a connection quite yet, how do you go about approaching that and gaining confidence in that space? We've been in previous webinars when students have said, I kind of get ghosted or nobody responds. So how do you all kind of initiate building a new relationship and getting that connection to get all of that started?
Oh, I love this one. You got to do it in person. They can't ghost you. And so there are lots of regional geoscience and environmental societies. There's groups like AIPG with their state chapters. They always have in-person meetings. Show up, just approach folks, it's like everyone's favorite uncle. They'll be like, yeah, let's chat and moving on. I think this is the challenge: is if it is too easy to be lost in the noise online. You just need to go find those online, those in-person opportunities, and there are a ton of local opportunities in this field that are these social environments. You just have to hunt through them. I mean, feel free to send me email. I can send you some of the list, but they're out there, and they're because they're geologists in every county in this country. So it is a very diverse spread, and so I think there's just got to do it in person. And
Yeah, I would jump in. I understand it could be scary. Literally, I just say to myself when I walk in a room, like the first person who makes eye contact with me, like, sorry, you're it. Like I'm going at you. You look at me, you're mine. And just remember too, like the people are there because they're networking. So they're either there because they're good at it and they're willing and wanting to talk to anybody and they'll want to talk to you and have a connection to help you make, or they're just as nervous as you are. So you're going to have an awkward conversation, but they're going to be like nervous and have the giggles and stuff too. So just, don't be scared and just do it.
Yeah, and I would add that maybe target people who are more your peers. So, maybe the head of an organization may not always have time, but somebody who's more of an entry level position or sort of lower down on the totem pole may have a little bit more time. Or if you're a little older, then maybe targeting someone who's similar in age and kind of making that connection for people up front to say, I have this thing in common with you, and I'm also interested in what you do. And then kind of going back to what we talked about earlier, just thinking of it as a conversation and not necessarily a transaction. I know I've been approached in a way that felt sort of very pushy before, and I'm less likely to respond to those types of things. But if someone, genuinely just seems like they want to talk and learn more, then I think that's easier to be receptive to.
I definitely agree with approaching somebody, trying to find something of common interest. Um, if you're at a gathering where there's multiple people, if you find somebody that's been talking about something that's of interest to you, go talk to them. Uh, and that's probably your best way of making connection. Um, Also, be willing to put yourself out and do something completely different. Or if you find that there's a niche for you, um, like a great example here in Tennessee is Cash Daniels, also known as the Conservation Kid. He saw an issue with fishing line and he started putting out fishing line collectors to the point where he's now up featured with the governor as an environmental leader. So whatever niche that you might be able to find is a great opportunity as well, and it gives you great experience.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. The panelists have really shared some great advice, right? It's starting small and just taking that leap. And you're all doing networking right now amongst each other and right here with the panelists and ourselves here at SNHU. So really great work. There was one more theme of question that I think captured many students' questions around translating either knowledge or experience or skills from a field that is not directly in environmental science or geoscience. If someone is coming from a nursing background or they've done volunteer work, how do you really kind of go about, presenting that in a way that gets you into the door for a conversation or for an interview?
All right, I want to jump in on this one because I came in as a chemist and into an environmental field. So they don't really fit in as well as I might like. But at the same time, it helps with your being flexible. For example, coming in as a nurse, now you have at least some chemistry. So you can understand things like paint safety data sheets. And then it becomes a matter of knowing how to do the calculations. And then suddenly, 26 years down the road, you're doing what I'm doing. Uh, but I really feel that with any experience you have, if you look at it as flexibility, um, you will be successful at it.
I can jump in with just some reassurance. I know I'm sure that it's very intimidating, coming from one industry and trying to jump into another. But at Conservation International, we have a lot of examples of where people have done this. One example is the woman who runs our entire climate strategy started her career as a dentist or working in the dental field. And I don't think she made the career jump until about 40. And now she's super instrumental to guiding the strategy at our organization. So just want to offer some words of comfort that it can be done. I don't know exactly how she did it, but it is possible.
I love that, seeing someone who's gone before you in a similar path, which may be challenging, but to see someone who's come from a non-traditional background. To kind of tack on to that question too, there's a lot of entry-level positions that tend to require experience. I'm curious to hear kind of from Christopher's perspective, if you have any either tips for gaining experience that would kind of fit with under that kind of experience bucket requirement, or ways that folks can really kind of pull some things together from maybe a diverse background into something that's relevant for the job.
Yeah, so one of the key things that you'll often see on those experiences are things like project management and budget and all these kinds of issues. And one of the things that we do with a lot of undergraduates is actually help step them through their own experiences and identify them. A lot of times you're doing things that at face value you don't consider project management, but you worked on a large, group project and you took the lead on this. You can start highlighting out that these are experiences that you can bring. And if you've been in the workforce, I guarantee you had a lot of intersections to that as well. It's just, you can't take it at face value for what the terms are. You have to think about what the activity is and go, hey, yeah, I was managing finances and budget. I was doing project management. I was doing public relations, and it's not really twisting words. It's actually burrowing into at the core of what they're looking at and then being able to sell it. If someone's trying, if it's entry level, I think the domain knowledge is expected to be just that. It's a domain knowledge that you will be learning to apply. It's all that other experience that really helps lift it.
I just wanted to jump in there. He made me think of something again that I wish somebody told me at the beginning of my career, was to keep writing down and keep track of the experiences and the projects that you're working on. I try once a month to just write, these are the projects I'm working on. It's about this kind of contamination, or it's this large of a site, or it's these attorneys or something. Just write down little things that will remind you, because I know I went to apply for my professional geologist license and I had to write up my experience, and they were being real sticklers about it and asking, like, give me 3 more months of this type of task that you performed. And to try and remember what I did 10 years ago on a project was super difficult. So now I've learned from that, and I'm trying to tell everyone I can to make sure you write down as you go through your career what you're working on, because even if you love your job like Donovan and you stay there for 26 years, to have that just in case you need it and it's automatically available and just here we go, and to not have to think about it, is super helpful.
And I'd also add in, don't fear challenges. And the more you get in your career, look for the opportunities that you have to be a leader as well. For example, there's a national network of small business environmental assistance programs. They have a lot of things going on. So if you're part of that, get involved. Similar to other things, but then as I came through, it's like I gradually drifted up, and over the past 2 years, I was the national chair for that group. Not something I ever expected to be, but that comes with time and having those experiences and taking advantage of whatever is offered before you.
Awesome. This has all been great. I'm keeping an eye on the clock, and we are literally just at 7, so want to be mindful of that. Apologies if there's honestly been such a flurry of activity in the chat. Apologies if we did not get to everyone's questions. Feel free to submit those questions if you'd like. We can definitely send them off, or what we do encourage those in the audience is go ahead and connect with our panelists following this wrap up of this webinar series and this presentation. As we do that, please don't forget to make sure to check out Career 360. We've been putting that link in the chat. This is literally where everything we've talked about this evening, this entire Navigating Your Science Career Journey webinar series, all the videos have been posted. You can watch them back at any point in time. So in case you missed something, or there's opportunities for you to get the information once again. It will all live there, be housed in one space. So please don't hesitate to take a look at that. Panelists, if you feel comfortable, feel free to pop in your LinkedIn's or your contact information for those in the audience if you're open to them being connected with you following this presentation. Again, we've talked lots and lots about networking this evening. And so we just, again, want to give you the opportunity to do that. But first and foremost, thank you to all of you for being here this evening and sharing, again, such wonderful, amazing information, insights, and advice. I know I've walked away learning some things, so I hope those in the audience did as well. Again, there was a absolute flurry of questions and connections happening. I still see it going. So lots of students dropping in their LinkedIn URLs to connect with one another. So please feel free to do that. Let me just see here. Yeah, so what we will be doing, just follow up for those in the audience. We will be emailing you within 1 to 2 business days or so with a link to this particular recording. We'll also, again, be sharing out, if it's all right with our panelists, their LinkedIn, so you can connect with them following this presentation. Again, everything will live on the Career 360 website, so you won't miss a beat. Everything is there that you need. Everything we've talked about this evening is located there as well. So make sure you take a look back at some of those part 1 and part 2 of the series. We literally cover everything y'all have asked within those series, so definitely take a peek at those. And please don't hesitate. Finally, reach out to our amazing team here at SNHU. Your career services team is here to support you throughout your academic program, after you graduate, and well beyond. So please feel free to email us, call us directly. We are here to support you. If you have a moment to, this QR code is our survey. So if you have any comments or feedbacks, what you'd like to see for these webinars as we continue to do them on an annual basis, please feel free to fill out that survey. We'd love to hear directly from you. So with that, Tyra, did I miss anything, or is there anything you'd like to say before we sign off for the evening?
No, I am just so inspired by everyone that was in attendance. Thank you again to the panelists for sharing all of your expertise, all your experience and background. This has been so valuable, and I hope everyone enjoyed. Like Alyssa said, all of the materials and the recording and contact information will be shared following, most likely in the next 2 days or so. So keep a lookout, keep going, connect with each other, and thank you all so much.
Before we go, I just want to say too, if you do try to reach out on LinkedIn, just send like a little personalized message to me so I know that you're from this event. And also when you're connecting generally with anybody on LinkedIn, you should do that. It definitely gets you more feedback than otherwise.
Thank you, Greta. That's excellent advice. Yes, absolutely. Make sure you plug in that you're a SNU student, that you came to this webinar series. That'll be a great way to let our panelists know who you are and engage with you in that way. So thank you, Greta, for that extra plug. Again, another thing we say here at Career Services as well, make that message, make that connection personal. You're bound to get better returns on your messages. So with that, thank you all so much for being here. I know we're a little over time, so be cognizant of that. Thank you again, panelists. You all have been amazing. Thank you for those who joined us this evening, and we hope you all have a wonderful rest of the night and a wonderful rest of the week. Thank you all. Hope you have a great time. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.